Some news now that will affect taxi commuters. The Department of Transport will extend the closure of 5 taxi ranks in Soweto for another 3 months. The taxi ranks and routes were shut down in July after violent conflict between the Witwatersrand African Taxi Association and the Nansfield Dube West Taxi Association. Well, Gauteng MEC for Road and Transport Ishmael Vadi says he's yet to receive assurances that peace will be restored between the two. He joins us on the line now to tell us more about this decision. MEC, a very good morning to you and thanks for your time. Just a bit more explanation as to why you've decided to extend this closure of these ranks. They were due to open this morning.
Vika, we've been in discussions with WATA and Nanduwe for the better part of last week. And we said that, look, we're quite willing to lift the suspension notice provided they meet 3 basic conditions. The first is that there must be a commitment to peaceful operations and to non-violence in the area. 2, we wanted both parties to withdraw the heavily armed security companies that they had contracted supposedly to protect their leaders. And 3, that we wanted the 2 parties to abide by the operating license, the conditions that have been set within the operating licenses. Now, WATA has agreed to all 3 conditions. Their lawyers have confirmed and they've signed the agreement with us. And therefore, today I have uplifted the suspension notice and they are operating normally. Unfortunately, and I'm very disappointed about this, Nanduwe has not signed the agreement and has virtually refused to sign the agreement, setting all sorts of trivial conditions which does not help the process. So today we will be serving notice. In fact, we've served them the notice last night already, but today we will formally gazette it. If they don't sign the agreement with us, the suspension notice will be extended for another 3 months.
MEC, is this not opening the door now for more violence or for drivers who belong to WATA to be targeted now? Are you not sort of worried that this is what might happen, that this will further sort of intensify the dispute that they're having?
Well, we hope that reason will prevail, and we think we've put forward very reasonable conditions to both parties. Our doors remain open for Nanduwe. Should they sign the agreement in the next day or so, we will lift the suspension notice immediately and normalize the situation. I think the ball is really in the court of Nanduwe. From the government side, I mean, there's law enforcement personnel. They have been deployed. They are at the taxi ranks at the moment, and they're operating along the routes. Fortunately, there have been no incident this morning. We haven't had incidents for the last 4 weeks, I must say. So I hope that reason will prevail and that we can get this behind us as soon as possible.
What reasons have they given for not wanting to sign this agreement?
Well, they haven't given explicit reasons. They were putting forward additional conditions which were onerous both on government and on WATA, which was beyond what is in the operating license of both parties. And I don't think it's right for one party to try and dictate the terms of any settlement. Any settlement requires a degree of flexibility and compromise. And I don't see that in Nanduwe's case.
Now, how will you know that from today, drivers who belong to the Nanduwe Association will not be operating there? How will you be able to tell the difference?
Well, in the 5 taxi ranks that are affected, and where I have instituted the extraordinary measures over the last month, those ranks are closed right at the moment. I just received an update from our personnel on the ground. Those taxi ranks are not functioning, so they will not be operating from there.
Now, when you had initially suspended operations at these ranks in July, there were all kinds of accusations being leveled against transport authorities, against your department, saying there was corruption, that the reasons are not for what you're saying, that there were some backdoor deals that were being made. Have you addressed that?
Well, allegations are flowing fast and furious. We get this all the time in the taxi industry, not only in Soweto, but throughout the province. When people feel that their interests are not being advanced, and sometimes these are really pecuniary interests, allegations will flow fast and furious. What we are saying is that these operating licenses have been in existence for at least 20 or 25 years. There's never been a problem for a good number of years. This really has, boiled over in the last year or so because various parties were encroaching on each other's operating routes, and that's really the source of the tension. If people abide by the conditions of the operating license, there wouldn't be any problem at all.
All right. So obviously, the safety of commuters is paramount here, and that is why the suspension was put in place in the first place. If there were to be more violence, if there was to be the war continues, how will you ensure the safety of commuters?
Well, there's been a very strong deployment of the law enforcement, services in the area. As I said, for the last 4 weeks, there's been really no problems at all. The police are actually investigating 13 cases of murder, attempted murder, assault, intimidation, etc. We're hoping that these investigations will yield some prosecution and convictions in the near future. I think they are making progress. But in the end, I think as government, we've got to put the public interest first. We've got to put the safety of the residents of Soweto, of commuters first, and not look at promoting the business interests of any particular company or taxi association.
Well, thanks very much for your time. Gauteng MEC for Road and Transport on the line there, Ismail Vadi.